Hello everyone, and welcome to my first devlog. Now for those of you who don't know, I'm a full-time game design and development student, and I absolutely love it. However, at university, we're never really given the opportunity to finish projects. Each of our modules would ask us to create a prototype or showcase a certain design process, game mechanic or art style. As good as this was for learning the fundamentals such as basic programming, concept art, and usage of game engines, it always left me feeling like my projects were incomplete or had no substance. That was until June 2021, where I was afforded the opportunity to undertake a placement year in industry. Unfortunately, COVID-19 was very much still prevalent, which led to less placement opportunities being advertised. Unperturbed by this, one of my course mates Josh and I decided if we can't get a placement, we'll make one of our own. Kind of. Luckily, our university has an enterprise scheme that allows you, with a small amount of funding, to start up your own business with guidance from mentors and experts in their respective fields, such as social media or branding. We jumped at this opportunity, and after a couple late nights, what felt like a million cups of coffee, and what turned into a 45-minute interview, we were accepted onto the scheme. Now this is where our passion for game development really started to shine through, and all motivation skyrocketed. Primarily, we started and continue to develop a physical game, or a tabletop experience. We post regularly over on our Instagram, so if you're interested in seeing some of the developmental process over the past few months for that, go check it out. But this video is going to focus more on my transition back to video game development, and where I'm up to in my current projects. I was hit with the inspiration for my current project while I was, believe it or not, playing games. Vampire Survivors was blowing up on Steam and all over the internet. While I sat at my desk watching a friend of mine play it, I just thought, I could make something like this. I want to make something like this. So I downloaded Unity, set up a new Trello board, and acquired some assets from some of my favourite digital artists. And, well, here we go. Now, I chose to actually make my project in Unity for a couple of reasons. It's, first of all, one of the game engines I'm just most familiar with. One that we used quite a lot in university for both 2D and 3D projects, primarily 2D, which is what I prefer to work in. So I don't have all that much functionality in the game just yet. I'll just showcase here. I've got some basic idle animations, a running animation, and some basic scenery and lighting in place, just so I've got something to kind of work around. I've set it up so I'm able to spawn some enemies here, and of course if they touch you, they deal damage. The more enemies are nearby, the more damage you'll take. And of course you see the health bar underneath as we go. Now I've only got one attack in place so far, it's a manual swing that'll deal damage in front, and it takes currently at the moment 2 swings per enemy. They'll do the little I've taken damage flash that is traditional in games like this, before of course just disappearing off the map. There will of course be more detailed animations and such, more varied combat options, but for now this is what we've got. The enemies will always just slowly but surely work their way towards you. You'll notice that it does do damage in an area. I'm looking to be introducing more and more abilities, so you'll be able to upgrade and equip different active abilities that you can use throughout the level. You'll have certain shrines around the map and such that you'll have to hold for a while, kind of capture the flag S. Your main objective isn't just survive and kill stuff, it's also get stronger, and you'll be able to do that in quite a number of different ways. But for now, I feel like it's a pretty good starting point. Now the first thing I did was actually just bring in some environmental assets. So I've got a tile map set up. So we've got the floor, walls, and then we've got a third one for decor, which is the grids, any vases or anything like that goes on top. And there'll be certain instances where I want things to go in front of the player. There'll be instances where I want things to be behind the player. So having these separate layers just allows me a bit more flexibility. Now I actually got the assets for the actual tile map from a guy called Szadi. I think I'm pronouncing that right. There'll be a link below in the description to their art page, or to their itch.io. It's basically just made up of these different warbots. A lot of these I haven't used. I do intend to use a lot more of these going forward. And I use some of these things as inspiration. So The likes of vases can be used for holding coins and such, and because there's a fixed and a broken variant, if you cross over it, I can leave a broken variant afterwards. There are holes here. I could use those for different things. So if the player falls down, or they could kite mobs in that drop down. It's all sorts of different things. Now, the character is actually a set made by a guy called Penusbmic. I don't know how he goes about pronouncing it these days. They are a very talented pixel artist. Definitely go check them out. They're one of my favorite artists out there. But I've got a little bit of a player controller setup with my attack point and such. If we turn back on gizmos, shows the attack range for the swing, so anything in this area. It's all adjustable, so you can adjust the size, how much damage you actually want it to do, what enemies we want it to actually be dealing damage to. There's a lot of flexibility in this. The main camera, of course, I've just muted it now. It follows the player. Pretty simple. The actual canvas for the health bar, so I'm able to move this around. It's a pretty simple script, just applied to the health bar. I've got a set health value for the player, a separate one for the enemies as well. I may end up putting health bars in the enemies, but I'm not too sure at the time being. I've got spawners on the far left and far right hand side of the screen. Now these are both just out of view of actual camera. So it means that enemies will always spawn off camera and never just pop up in front of you. So it just adds that kind of quote-unquote immersion to the game. And of course the enemies, so this one is just an empty game object, so when I do create enemies I can put any prefabs and list them all in here, or just a placeholder for the time being. You can see one of the prefabs here for the robots. Basically whenever it is in contact with the player hitbox, so this outer one, so the smaller one is the collision hitbox. It's smaller, so we're able to actually slip through enemies a little bit easier. However, you will take damage if the outer collider, so this outer green circle, collides with this. And they currently deal, how much is it? 1 damage every 0.5 seconds. So small amounts of damage that do trickle on pretty quick. And baseline, I've got the player to have 20 health. It's got this basic run animation. And I didn't bother putting in idle or anything like that, purely because it's always going to be moving, so there's no real point to it. And the damage animation. Lighting, very, very simple solution, and again, very temporary. Yeah, if you go to the package manager, you're looking for the universal RP. This basically just allows you to create the 2D pipeline, and actually, even though this is all 2D, actually have shadows and such within the actual game object. So you can actually incorporate lighting, things like that, which is really exciting for a 2D game. It really adds a lot of depth. Because without them, if I show here, so an easy way to showcase the difference, if I turn it to global, this is what the game would look like without lighting in place. And this is what the game looks like with the lighting in place. So it's subtle, but it's a very big difference. It just adds a lot more depth to the game itself. Yeah, that's about all we have for the game at the moment. I'm definitely looking at creating, as I said, a lot more abilities for the actual player, which is the main priority. The first one I'm actually going to do is a sort of dash, so the player will have some form of mobility to help them get out of sticky situations. I'll be adding at least a couple more enemy types. The final game ideally will have 20-30 different enemy types, as well as, of course, some stronger bosses and certain boss battles potentially that could break up the tedium of just hitting hordes and hordes. I'm really looking forward to kind of coming up and concepting these ideas. For the most part, I will be using Pen's assets just because they are absolutely phenomenal, and honestly, half my inspiration just comes from looking at these assets and figuring what the hell I can do with them, because they are just awesome. But yeah, if you want any updates, or if you want me to elaborate on any of my individual components, let me know. I'm more than happy to make some tutorials showcasing how I did some of this stuff. And also, I'm still learning. If you have any help or anything that you've seen so far that you think I could be doing better, please hit me up in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts and get feedback on how I can make this the best possible game. Also, if you've got any ideas or recommendations for features or mechanics you might want to see showcased in a game like this, again, let me know. And I hope to see you all very, very soon in the next devlog. Thanks for tuning in, guys. See you soon.